Welcome to Straight Talk about Health and Wellness. This is a place where we have real conversation with real people in real events that's happening today. Today will be discussing the topic that affects thousands and hundreds of children today. According to Adopt US Kids, I'm trying to read my notes for you guys so I can get these facts right. Okay. From Adopt US Kids, there are over 400,000 and counting in the foster care system. All right. Between these foster care children, there's always a story to be told. All right. There's a story to be told. There are faces behind the story, and these are voices that deserve to be heard. So today we have a young lady, Norma Mendoza. All right, she has came back to us, and I am so thrilled she has came back to us. She is the manager of the recruitment department of the Orange County, California. All right. And we are going to be talking about foster care. We're going to be talking about CASA workers. And CASA, the real name for CASA, the initials is CASA, right?
Mhm.
But the real name is Court Appointed Special Advocate.
Mhm.
All right, so we're going to learn all about that. To parents that want to be foster parents or advocate. All right, you'll learn a lot today from this segment. All right, so let's take a listen. Hi, Norma. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fine. I am so thankful that you took time to come back to us.
Of course. Thank
Your
you for having me.
schedule. I am so thankful. Thankful. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Norma. Like you mentioned, I'm the volunteer recruitment manager here at CASA Orange County. I'm actually an immigrant myself. I moved to the United States when I was 13 with my family. And I ended up learning about CASA through a college organization that I was doing work for. And so I've been with CASA for 5 years now in a variety of different roles, but all within the volunteer recruitment department. And it is the privilege of my life to be able to serve this organization.
Oh my goodness. Well, I must ask, what made you decide to do this type of work?
Yeah, so in college, I was part of a sorority called Kappa Alpha Theta that does fundraising for CASA nationally. And so I ended up just getting to know a little bit more about the program, the mission, and really the need of this population. And I started to get a little bit more involved. I ended up having an internship here at CASA. And through that, I just really saw the need of getting more volunteers to become mentors for these children and the need of representation as well. And so I became really passionate about it and have been fortunate enough that they've kept me around for 5 years now.
Fantastic. What is the difference between a CASA worker and a social worker?
Great question. So, social workers are paid employees that work for the whole family. And so that's sometimes a misconception, but social workers are working for the whole family and they have a background education on how the system works. The difference with a CASA is that these are volunteers, they're not paid, and they're also only focusing on the child. As opposed to the social worker, that the case is the whole family, the CASA volunteer is really solely focused on the child, their needs, their wants, and advocating for them. And our CASAs come from all different backgrounds as well, all different levels of education, fields, careers, all of those things. And so we really do get a great variety of folks.
So it's very diverse.
Mhm.
I guess you would need to be very diverse because you get all types of kids from different cultures
Absolutely.
in foster care. I don't know if I shared, I was a foster care mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was. I think about 10 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was. I did for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And I adopted my daughter.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she's like 28 now. So I adopted her when
Oh,
she was around 12.
oh, wow.
Yeah. So
It's
I
a
was,
Yeah, being a foster parent is so important. That's what I tell people too with this population. There's a lot of different
Mhm.
ways to help. And so it's nice to see everyone who's invested in this work.
Oh yeah, I was invested. I'm still invested.
Yeah, lifetime.
Yeah. So what does it take to get on board to be a CASA worker? Mhm.
Yeah, so we actually, since we do take folks from all walks of life, we provide all the training that's necessary to be able to fulfill the role. And so when someone is interested, they'll come to an information session where they get to learn a little bit more about the role, responsibilities, all of those things. And then they go through an application and interview process, and then we put them through our training process that touches on different topics that are needed to know a little bit more about. And so things like boundaries, mentorship versus advocacy, the system, all of those things that will prepare that volunteer to fully show up in the role. And then they're also matched to an advocate supervisor, which is their support system throughout their time as a volunteer. And then we continue offering opportunities for more education throughout their time as volunteers as well.
Do they need to pass a background clearance?
Yes, during a training process, we do run background checks on all of our volunteers, which includes a fingerprint check and then a check on the child abuse registry as well.
Yeah, I was saying I remember those background checks.
Yeah, yeah. The
Very
safety of our
important.
kids is very important, of course, and so we want to make sure that we're
Mhm.
placing safe adults in their lives.
This is fantastic, Norma. So, how does the CASA worker collaborate with the courts, the social worker, the foster parents, and maybe sometimes their biological parent? How
Mhm.
did all that work together?
Yeah. So we're really lucky to have a great relationship with the court. And so we have an MOU with the dependency court here in Orange County that allows our access into that setting and also the records and other professionals on the case. And so all of our volunteers have a court appointment to be the advocate for this child, thus the name of the organization.
Mhm.
And so once the volunteer is through their onboarding process, they'll meet with the social worker on the case to kind of get a sense of what's been going on, where the social worker might need support. And then they also have an initial visit with the child's caregivers. And so if the child is placed with a resource family, a foster parent, maybe they're placed in the emergency shelter, the CASA will have that initial visit to kind of again an idea of what that setting is like and then get information as well for the caregiver to be able to schedule those outings with the youth that our volunteers go on.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to the social worker, other professionals, school, all of those things, our CASAs have access to those folks to be able to do their advocacy. And so if there's a question about, the process of the court or a hearing or something like that, they can go to the social worker, they can even go to the attorney or the judge to be able to talk about those things. And then even schools, for example, education is a huge area of advocacy. And so sometimes our volunteers are talking with teachers,
Mhm.
principals, anyone that is in a professional capacity in the child's life,
Mhm.
they have access to. And so I always like to describe the CASA role as adding help to the team that's already working so hard
Sure,
to be able
sure.
to help this child.
Yes, I mean, I do agree with that because sometimes you do get involved with the school and the teachers and the school therapists. I remember
Yeah.
I signed the educational rights, and
Hmm.
that was a big deal. I remember that time I did that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot involved,
Yeah.
but one thing about myself as a foster parent, you really need to like to do it. All
Mm.
right. Because sometimes you do put yourself on the back burner, sometimes because
Hmm.
they need you first.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's emotional work for sure.
It is. It is. So, what is the challenge, the biggest challenge of a CASA worker?
I think adjusting expectations can be difficult. Like you said, people that are coming to this work are very passionate and are wanting to make a
Mhm.
difference. But the reality is that we're dealing within a system that is overburdened and underfunded and can sometimes take time. And
Mhm.
so, really adjusting your expectations and understanding that wins look different for every child and success looks different for every child too. And so, Success might look like making sure that the child is getting to school every day. And that in and of itself is already a hill to climb when it comes to, being a child in foster care. And so adjusting those expectations is really important to meet the child where they're at and really be able to walk with them through the foster care system.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I really because sometimes some children have more challenges than others. Yeah, I really
And
agree
it's
with
really
that.
about getting to the root cause of those issues, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes
It is.
the advocate might know that the child isn't going to school, but when you
Mhm.
start delving a little bit deeper, it might be that they don't have transportation, or maybe they don't have clean clothes and they're getting bullied at school, so they don't want to go.
Exactly.
All of those things
Mhm.
that can be helped with a consistent adult in their lives while they're in care.
I like this. I like this conversation, Norma.
I love it.
You mentioned, funds, and I'm mentioning budget. So with this new administration that we do have, all
hmm
right, that's in town.
hmm
I'm hearing all this noise about things have been cut and that's been cut. How are you guys making it? Because how are asking you funded? You funded from the state and the county,
Yeah, that's
or
a
I mean,
great
how is
question.
that managed?
So we are actually very lucky in Orange County that we are majority privately funded. And so about
Mhm.
80% of our funding comes from individual donors, family foundations, really the people. We did have some federal funding that was through our national CASA organization. And unfortunately, we did
Mhm.
hear that some of those funding sources were cut. And so our state organization, our California CASA state organization, is really supportive in that way as well. And so, like I mentioned, we are lucky to be in a situation where the majority of our funding does come from private donors, but that's not the case for every CASA program either. And so, in Orange County, we're lucky to have that, but there's 950 chapters across the United States where CASA is represented. And so everyone has a different challenge with that. Our community of supporters has rallied by our
Mhm.
side through these changes as
Mhm.
well, and we've been able to, keep going with the mission that we have, and with the support of the people that are out there, still believing in our work.
Yeah, that was very important because that like touched my heart, when I hear things have been discontinued, So what is the misconception that people have about children that are in foster care?
I think that they're bad kids, I feel like what I hear from our volunteers a lot that have had the
Mhm.
time to build relationships with our kids is that they're
Mhm.
great kids. They're fun, they're full of life, they're, you know, looking for to have fun and all of those things. They're just in a really bad situation. And so they're not bad kids, they just are in really tough circumstances.
Mhm.
And I think something that's really important that I tell folks too is that we're not here to speak for the child. We are here to amplify their voice. And so empowering them to know that their voice matters, their wants and needs matter, so much so that there's this adult that's continuing to show up for you without
Mhm.
getting paid because they think you're worth it. And so I think that really shifts the perspective when it comes to that relationship from with our kids and our volunteers. And so, yeah, amplifying their voices is really important.
Mhm.
Um, we're, being in foster, empowering kids to make their own
Mhm.
choices and communicate their needs and wants can really change their trajectory later on as well.
I see. So what age now can they stay in foster care?
In California, they can stay in care up until 21. And
Mhm.
so we have extended foster care. There's other states that have it too, but it's not federal law. And so federal is still 18 years old. But with extended foster care here in California, they get up until 21 years old if they choose to remain in the
Mhm.
system. At age 18, that's a personal choice that they make. If they choose to stay as dependents, then they'll gain access to those extra resources for those three
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
And if they choose not to opt into, it's called non-minor dependent. If they choose not to opt into that, then they'll emancipate.
Emancipate.
Mhm.
Can they be as young as 16 in California?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we theoretically could see kids from 0 to 21. Um, The youngest that I've heard in Orange County having a CASA was 3 years old.
Mhm.
But yeah, we could go from 0 to 21. The majority of the kids that we serve are 13 through 17 in
Mhm.
those teenage years where they need the most support, I would say.
Of course. Of course. I remember I adopted mine at 12. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. But it came out okay.
Yeah.
But these CASA workers, they go through a lot of changes themselves. They see all these kids with different type of emotional situations and probably some with some dual diagnoses also. So how do
Mhm.
you support your CASA workers that's going through these changes with these kids?
Yeah, it's really important for us that our volunteers feel supported through their time, not just at the beginning and onboarding, but through their time as a volunteer. And so what we do is we have a wonderful team of advocate supervisors. We have
Mhm.
about 17 advocate supervisors that are overseeing all of our volunteers. And so that's the person that the volunteer goes to when they need support, when they might need to talk through something, when they might need advice on how to handle a situation. They have that support system with their advocate supervisor. And then we also have opportunities for CASAs to connect with each other. And so we have affinity groups where they can come and chat about challenges or successes that are
Mhm.
going on in the case with fellow CASA volunteers
Mhm.
and also get advice from those folks. And then we also host a lot of continuing education opportunities where we might bring in experts that are working in trauma-informed care, for example.
Mhm.
And so giving that expert advice to our volunteers on how to handle some of these situations to hopefully kind of, make sure that they feel equipped to continue
Mhm.
doing the role. And then I would say we have wonderful community partners out there that are already doing great work as well. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes we like to collaborate to make sure that we're giving each other resources as well.
Nice, nice. I'm sure you have the churches involved and community leaders and things like that are involved.
Yeah.
What role does cultural competence play with the cost of worker?
hmm I think similar to adjusting expectations is meeting the
Mhm.
youth where they're at, right? And so I think that a lot of what I tell folks, I'm one of the facilitators for training, and the unit that I train is called Belonging, where
Mhm.
we really go into all the different walks of life that our youth could come from and how those
Mhm.
things might affect them. And so we go into neurodivergence, for example.
Mhm.
If you're the child that you're matched with has ADHD, they might struggle in social settings, or they might not want to be at one of our CASA hosted events. And so meeting the youth where they're at with that understanding, it's really important. And then also addressing the disproportionality that exists within the system. We know that Hispanic, Latino, and Black children are overrepresented when it comes to the foster care system. And
Mhm.
so understanding where that might come from. So we educate our volunteers on, how systems like education and healthcare
Mhm.
can affect the trajectory of someone in foster care, or can even lead to someone being part of the foster care
Mhm.
system. And so
That's
it's really
true.
important for us to educate our volunteers on that perspective, because it takes intentionality to really step out of our bubble. And
Mhm.
so we always want to make sure that our volunteers come into new situations with a blank slate and making sure that they're getting to know the person first before they make any assumptions
Mhm.
about what it is that they might need.
Nice, nice. Someone like me, I'm African American and I adopted an Hispanic child.
Mm,
All right. So it's something that I needed to learn,
yeah.
about her, and she needed to learn about us. So
Yeah,
with
and
that,
that's what I tell volunteers too. I think
uh-huh.
leading with curiosity is really important, right? And so
Yeah, it
when a
is.
child says something, just asking a little bit more about it. Where did you hear that? Where did that come from?
Hmm.
And what can I do for you? Rather than assuming what it is that they need.
Yeah, that's nice. I think the key is communication though. It's keeping the communication open. That's why I was
Absolutely.
communicate. That's what communicate. I didn't know that. Communicate.
Absolutely.
But what can you say, huh? Every day is a learning experience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You learn something new every day.
Can you share one good story with us?
Yeah, so we're actually starting to delve more into juvenile justice as well. And
Hmm.
so there
Okay.
are some cases where youth are both in foster care and are system impacted. And
Hmm.
so there's a crossover court actually that deals with that intersection of foster care and juvenile hall.
Hmm.
And so some of our volunteers are advocating for kids that are currently in juvenile hall. And we heard recently of a volunteer who went in to visit the youth at juvie,
Hmm.
and the youth shared that there was a fight inside, and someone was violent with his brother. And so he
Hmm.
said, I have to retaliate. And
Hmm.
the CASA was like, well, let's explore that, right? Why do you feel that
Hmm.
you have to? Is there harm coming
Hmm.
your way if you don't? Is there this? And really
Hmm.
exploring what happens. And then the youth said, I just have to show them that I'm a man. And the
Hmm.
volunteer said, well, let's think about what being a man is, right? And
Hmm.
being a man can also mean forgiveness, and it can mean vulnerability. And it really just opened up perspective for this youth that
Nice.
that wasn't the only outlet. And then
Hmm.
the week after, the advocate went back to visit the youth, and they learned that he had not retaliated and that he was
Hmm.
safe and he was okay. And it's
Nice.
just such a great opportunity to see
Uh-huh.
themselves represented. It's someone who is, a thriving adult that can really again change their perspective, not just of themselves, but of the
Hmm.
world.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we always are in the teaching mood. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, CASA, foster parents, teachers. You're always
And
in
And kids are sponges too. And
the,
so they
see?
are
Yeah.
very much absorbing what it is that they're seeing, and especially if it's someone that they trust. So it was really special to see that change and to hear that
Nice.
from our colleagues. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So let me get this clear. A CASA worker is a volunteer,
Yes.
correct? So anything they buy for the child is out of their pocket, correct?
Yeah. And we want to make sure that we don't have the financial aspect be a burden.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that this doesn't become about the financial aspect. And so we do
Mm-hmm.
ask volunteers to only spend up to $25 on the youth per outing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, that is a cost that comes out of their pocket. But really, it's about building that space to have quality time
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always come from money. And so there might not be anyone taking this kid to the park for a few hours. And so the CASA can
Mm-hmm.
do that and build that connection. We don't want them to take them to Disneyland or any of those things. That's not the purpose. And also, we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to create a wedge within their family unit either. We had a situation where there's multiple siblings in the home, and only one of them had a CASA, and they went out and did all of these fun things throughout the day that
Mm-hmm.
were expensive. And then when they came back home, that was an issue because the little siblings didn't get to do
Oh,
that. And then
right.
we're
I could see that.
creating, yeah, and then we're creating
Mm-hmm.
a tension within the family, which is the last thing we want to do. We want to make sure that we're always adding to the case, not taking anything from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we really encourage our volunteers to focus on that quality time, not the financial aspect.
Exactly. Nice, nice. I could see that. I could see a little jealousy, in there with the rest of the siblings.
Yeah, and then
See
also,
that.
it might be really easy for someone to go out and buy a pair of shoes for the youth, but
Hmm.
when you're really thinking about what the role of a CASA is to get to the root cause of why that youth didn't have those shoes in the first place. And so getting them a pair of shoes is almost a band-aid solution if you don't get to the root of the issue. So that's where the CASA work is really important.
Well, well, Norma, you have given us some good information. All right. So now we know what the CASA does. We know about foster care. We have a little bit of this, some challenging moments, some successful moments. Is there any last words that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
I think just saying that, you'd be surprised how much of a difference showing up can make. And by
Mhm.
just spending 8 to 10 hours a month, you could be changing the trajectory of a child just by showing up. And showing up is extraordinary. So you can give your time, your treasure, your talent, anything that
Mhm.
you want to give to support our organization. There's a lot of ways that you can help. Um,
Mhm.
and don't underestimate the value of your time.
Fantastic, fantastic. So those that want to be CASA workers, you need to look up CASA in your state. But if you're
Yes.
here in California, you need to contact Norma Mendoza. All
Mhm.
right. And you want to give us your email that you
Yeah. So
contact?
my email is N as in Norma, Mendoza, Mendoza, at casaoc.org. And if you wanted to look up our website, it's www.casaoc.org.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I always think about a retired person also. Sometimes they don't have a schedule and they want to get out the house for a few hours.
Mhm.
There you are. Go have some
Yeah,
ice cream. Notice I said
exactly.
ice cream. I should have said fruit, I guess.
A little ice cream cone can be a great treat.
Right, everyone. We had a good time. All right. But in the meantime, all right, until next time, I'm going to say be safe, be healthy, and be blessed.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I guess that is it. Well, thank
Nice.
you, Norma.
Thank you. That was easy.
I'll be sending you the clips. I'll give you some clips and the video. All right. And
All
we'll keep
right,
in
perfect.
touch.
Thank you.
We'll
I
keep in
appreciate
touch.
you having us back.
Oh, I appreciate you making time for me.
Of course.
Okay, talk to you
Alrighty,
soon.
have a good one.
Okay, you
Bye.
too. Bye bye.